hear it go. There we go.
we go.
That's what I was waiting
Got
for.
distracted.
Good
So
job.
thank you, Trisha. We are now recording. So I was just talking about the outline for today. I have in mind to do a Reiki experience, and I'm debating in my mind whether to do that first or after a little talk. If you have a vote, let me know when you do a check-in. And first, I do want to do check-ins because we want to just share and say hello to each other. And I'm just thinking about whether I have any check-ins, but I'll go last. How's that? So, who will go first? Let's say hi. I'm going to start with Trisha because you're in my top row.
Oh, I know I'm always first. Um, well, there's not much to check in. I mean,
How's Finn?
he's great. He's at my feet right now, and Yogi's next to me too. They're like hanging out. They always hang out with Reiki, these two especially, or prayer. If I'm praying, they're right there too. Well, Yogi especially. But yeah, Finn is at my feet. He sometimes he's still a little bit nervous, but as long as he knows I'm okay,
So
that's
share
his job.
share about our class.
Oh yeah, the class. Where I did Reiki before I introduced the dogs. Um, and then I brought Finn in and I was doing Reiki as I brought him into the new group, and it went very well. Um, we were concerned there was going to be some issues, but yeah, it was. And then I saw Reiki on video, or maybe it was, I don't know what it was, but you could see these raining, it's like it was snowing. I showed Laura the
Have
video.
you
I
got it
haven't,
onto the thumb drive yet?
no, I haven't been home.
Okay.
So I need to get home and try to figure that out. Um, but yeah, so it was really neat. And we actually did animal Reiki last week with the group, and they're doing good. I think he's settling. And oh, I didn't tell you, I actually went home and he didn't even want to get out of the truck.
Wow.
He's like, we're not home anymore, you know?
Oh,
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I
So,
just got chills. That's really cool.
but yeah, I had to, well, I went home because there was some roofing and he's very nervous with loud noises. So I took him to my house, and he did not want to get out. He's like, nope. I'm like, well, I'm staying with you. I'm not going anywhere. I think he thought maybe I'd leave him there, but yeah, he wants to be here, or he just wants to be with me all the time. I figured out his purpose, but he's got to learn to be able to stay when I'm gone. I can't take him everywhere. So,
Yeah.
but we know his purpose, and it's me. So,
Yeah, this is
but
an animal Reiki class, and you told me, I think, that after that class, he slept a whole bunch, right?
yeah,
Like
yes, he did.
he got a really deep healing, and when we were working on him as a group, actually it was all the dogs, but he was definitely responding because he was doing this like he was a sentinel. He'd go from corner to corner to corner to corner, and then start again around the house. And
And
Trisha,
he's let, yeah,
you
what,
mentioned
go ahead.
that wasn't like normal for him to
No, that's not normal. I mean, he does normally, check the perimeter, but
yeah,
that was a little different.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, he's not whining as much. But so that's good. I actually noticed that
yeah. Nice.
too. Yeah, it's
Good.
been,
So maybe he
yeah,
feels more like home. The healing has started and the bonding has started with the other dogs. And
yeah. Him and Yogi want to play when in the house. I was like, can you do that outside? Nope, they got to do it in the kitchen. I'm like, okay.
well, thanks for sharing. And her video is fantastic. I asked her to put it on a thumb drive so I can put it on my YouTube channel because it literally is, while she's doing Reiki, the camera is picking up showers of orbs. It's
wow.
remarkable.
Could you also tell me what you meant by his purpose is me?
Oh, I don't know. How do you explain that? My animal, I don't know. I, because I don't know. Laura could explain it better because she's the one that kind of picked that up. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's definitely his purpose is to protect me. And he's even taken on some of my emotions too. Animals do that.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost like he was assigned to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that when I work with animals and people that they have a function in a lot of cases for the human. And Colleen Benelli talks about her cat and also her horse who got lame in order to show her that she needed to become a healer, you know. But I've heard animals tell me things like, I came for a very specific purpose, you know. And in Finn's case, it was really remarkable. He was mirroring what his impression was of what she needed. He was showing me like it was his wound or his area. And then he almost like mimicked her voice to me. And he said something, I need help, or something really simple like that. And Trisha is fine, but she's going through things. But his perception was that she needed help. But I knew he didn't mean he needed help. It was like, no, for her.
Mhm.
And that was, I wasn't quite sure if I got it right, but the more we kind of teased it out together, the more it felt like, yeah, that's definitely at least part of that message.
Yeah, Todd said that when he came home first one day, he immediately was looking for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, forget you. Where's mom?
Yeah, Colleen talks about her cat was like that. And he was always under her feet,
Mm.
and
Ben, same.
yeah. So, yeah. And sometimes animals will, because of changes in situations, they'll lose their purpose, right? Maybe their human dies or they move or they get, and so that can be a really upsetting situation to be a dog or a cat or an animal with no purpose anymore, no way to express their purpose. But animal Reiki, that's one of the things it can help with. So, yeah,
Yeah, he's doing very well. Um,
excellent. So glad to hear that.
yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well,
Yeah,
how
that's kind of awesome. I hope you don't mind. I might share that story with my girlfriend. She does like fostering for cats, and she works with like not a lot of animals, but she has a lot of animals. And she just received a dog, which is from her like daughter, and her daughter couldn't have it. And this dog reminds me of kind of like what Trisha was going through with like this dog is like always looking for her and gets kind of like separation anxiety. So I kind of want to mention that to her, to my girlfriend as well, and she might benefit from animal Reiki, especially with like the fostering, because sometimes she'll receive like cats that are like aggressive and don't work well with like humans, and she'll like I forgot the term, but kind of open them up and make them more comfortable around humans, and then she'll adopt them. So that's kind of cool. And I think like now that you guys are talking about it, I feel like Animal Reiki would probably help her in that effort as well.
oh wow, yeah, for sure. Um, I can tell my Coco story too, since you have animals in your world. But actually, it's Joel.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
had,
When you said Coco, I was like, is
yeah,
that Joel's Coco?
Yeah, Joel's Coco. Actually, when I first saw Coco, I was running up the street because I like to go run to a big park up there, and then I run to the park, and then I run home. And I saw this car coming down the street, and I saw this beautiful dog. I didn't even notice Joel was driving. The dog was so striking. And suddenly it dawned on me, wait, I know the guy who's driving, but Joel or Coco just has this presence, like he was the driver. Um, anyway, for a long time, I don't know, do you know the backstory about Coco? He was going to be euthanized at the shelter, and um, he's just a very gifted, rambunctious Siberian Husky, very unique though. And they're difficult dogs anyway, and you need to really know what you're doing to have a dog like that and be prepared. But the shelter was not um, housing him or, adopting him out appropriately. So he had gotten into trouble. And so I think 5 times he ended up biting somebody or something like that. And so they were going to euthanize him. And Joel just immediately was like, no way. So he adopted, well, he took, I don't know what the term is, but he took him,
Foster.
fostered, yes, fostered him to see if he could find a appropriate home for him.
Mm.
So for months and months, he insisted that he was not adopting the dog. That no, I'm just working on the perfect family, but his list would be like, 4 miles long of everything you have to be good enough to be Coco's family, right? And he even came to me once because my dad has a rental and he lives in the rental. He actually rented it. And he wondered if my dad would mind if he put in a chain link fence, where we have this picket fence. And I'm like, well, my dad would be, and I'll pay for everything and I'll do the work. And I'm like, well, my dad would just see that as free property improvement. So I'm sure he would love it. And oh, by the way, isn't that a pretty permanent fence for a temporary dog? But the thing went on about how he still no, never again, because he'd had a really important dog in his life, and that dog had died, and it was very, very hard. So anyway, one of the things about Coco is he was super agitated, like Finn, only even worse when he couldn't be glued to Joel. And so even if they were outside and Joel put him behind the picket fence, if he was mowing the lawn or something, he would just freak out. And it was really difficult for Joel. And um, so anyway, I was in I was receiving the animal Reiki class, and I think it was day 2 or something. I can't remember, but I heard a message about Coco and Joel, and I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't practicing with them or anything like that. And the message from Animal Reiki, from Reiki actually, was tell Joel that he needs to tell Coco he's home. And I realized it was telling me that that's why he's so freaked out.
Oh, yeah.
And so he won't calm down until there's a solidness about it, right? Well, my thought was, there's no way I'm going to tell Joel he has to do something he doesn't want to do. Even though I can see he must want to do it really because you know,
His actions.
fostering for
Yeah.
6 months, building this whole fence and doing all these other things. And when he would talk to me, the love for Coco would just be like, effusive. So anyway, when I got done with class, we already had arranged that I would get to practice with Coco and him. And so I it must have been Animal Reiki Master because I gave them an attunement. And in an Animal Reiki, you can actually give the animals, if they want it, an attunement to Reiki.
Mm.
And so Coco totally wanted it. And the miraculous thing about Coco, from Joel's perspective and also mine, I was just kind of blown away. We could be at the dog park where that's the place Coco gets to run pell mell, right? Just he runs for mayor. He's talking to everybody. He's biting everybody's butts. He's trying to get trouble going, you know. It's a huge park and he is in everybody's business, you know. But when I go walk with him and I just offer Reiki, he'll lay at my feet. He'll just like, he knows what it is. So, anyway, I go to give them a session and an attunement after my master class, and I can feel the Reiki energy just opening up everybody's hearts. Well, first of all, Coco and Joel are so beautiful together. Like Coco puts his paw on Joel while they're doing the attunement, and Joel's like, "Oh my gosh, I can actually feel the energy coming through, you know, from Coco." And and then Joel's heart starts to just shift with the energy, and I can just feel something is happening. And so I felt like I had an invitation to tell him what I received in class. And I said, you know, I'd never want to tell you what to do, but I wasn't even thinking about you two. And here's what I heard. And he just sat there and he went, oh my gosh, you're right. I got to go down to the Humane Center um, Society today and I got to adopt him. And I said, and just tell him, tell Coco what you're doing, and I think you'll be okay. Well, I got a text a few hours later after he did that, both of those things. And Coco is on the other side of the fence that he used to freak out being, and he's completely sacked out on this piece of plywood. He's just soaking up the sun, totally relaxed and chill. And he's like, here's how he feels now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not an animal communicator. But what I discovered was animals can communicate to me now that I've done animal Reiki.
Mm.
And I guess this is on topic because we're going to talk a little bit about psychic information today. So um, it does feel like Reiki makes it possible for the animals to be very clear with me, but I can't necessarily, you know, have a conversation that I start like an animal communicator would, you know. And I haven't really done a lot of trying in that area, but anyway, uh, it's happened multiple times when animals need to tell me something. So anyway, yes, for your girlfriend, also just so you know, to do animal Reiki, you take holy fire because you need the human Reiki first. And then you can be animal Reiki trained to any level that you've become human holy fire trained. But it could be for other lineages too. So animal Reiki will work with just traditional Usui Reiki or some other kind of Reiki if you come from a different lineage. So, but because animal Reiki, the way it works is it um, augments the Reiki frequencies that you already have. And it kind of tailors them with a frequency that's helpful for animals. So that and as humans, we need our own Reiki to be able to be working with other humans and ourselves. And when you work with animals, you always end up working with humans. So there's a lot of reasons why animal Reiki also requires human Reiki of some kind or regular Reiki, whatever we call it. People have been doing Reiki, using regular Reiki, we'll call it, with animals for a long, long time. And the animal Reiki class is relatively new. So it's another evolution through the holy fire lineage of Reiki. And there's a lot of wonderful things about it, but it's not required. Um, People have been writing books and teaching classes on doing Reiki with animals for a long time. So, anything else from Tristan for your check-in?
Um, um, hmm. Check in like how I've been doing with my Reiki.
We just kind of say hello. You talked about animal Reiki. I just wanted you to have a chance to say anything about how you are since class or anything interesting going on or
Yeah, I think the biggest I guess like something I've noticed is that like I feel like this presence, whether it's like Reiki or these angels, have like always been with me now, and like there's just like this presence that's like always there, and it's it's a comforting presence. Um, One of my questions that I sent to you was about like tarot card readings and angel card readings, and I just got these angel cards, and I did a reading this morning. I kind of wanted to share this, and I haven't been super consistent with my Reiki meditations as well, just full transparency. But I did a angel card reading on myself this morning, and something I'll note too is that almost always these tarot card readings are like pretty spot on. And this angel card reading this morning was like spot on as well. And then I just felt this like huge rush of just like energy like flowing through me after I kind of like realized the story that it laid out. And I was like, oh wow, that was, interesting. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I've noticed since the class is that, there's been like a switch almost that has like turned on. And um, I've been experiencing like these energies more like in a more like pronounced way.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. That's great. You're working with the angels and the cards, and that's perfect. And I love what you say that you're actually just more aware now that they've always been here.
Yeah, and I've never really been like drawn to angels. I've been interested in like, religion and spirituality, but never, and so, angels have come up, but I've never been like specifically drawn to them. But ever since I think the first class, I've just been like super drawn to like angels since then. And I've been like researching and like trying to look up different resources, and especially Archangel Michael. So that's another thing that happened too. So Archangel Michael was like the first angel that kind of like popped into my head and has been kind of like in my thoughts. And then I ordered Joel's the one that told me to order the the angel, like he gave me a specific angel deck to order and I ordered it. And I opened it
When did
up
you
and
get, by the way? Which one did he tell you to get?
um so he gave me two of them. The one that he specifically told me to get first, I'm like still waiting to receive it. This was like a couple weeks ago now, actually. But I have this one here by Radley Valentine. It's all blurred out. But
What's the name
that's
of it?
it just says Angel Tarot Cards by Radley Valentine.
Okay. He's got a bunch of them. I have this one.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. That's by the same person.
Yeah, he has a bunch. And this one is super good too. So it's Angel Wisdom Tarot.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, this was um I mean I like it so far, but I'm still like super new to it. But so I got the deck. I kind of read the manual and shuffled it, and I pulled the first card, and it was Archangel Michael. So I thought that was like super interesting. And then like I read it, and it's like the theme for Archangel Michael has also been kind of like things that I've been thinking about for myself, and some of my strengths and opportunities for like my growth as well. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Following your, I can hear you really following your prompts kind of too. And the discussion of psychic information is all about that, I feel, you know. So sometimes I think we're actually doing everything and we just need to have that validated.
Yeah, I think that's helpful, at least every once in a while, to kind of tell us like, okay, yeah, continue. You're doing the right thing.
Right. Right. I love that. And that's what these mentoring classes are all about in the practice sessions, to show people, you're already getting information and you're already doing this work. And here you get to have confirmation, you get to hear how it comes differently to different people. And then maybe I can also share, here's some things to help us stay safe, just because I've been in this world for 35 years and kind of had some hard knock lessons as well that I would love to, you know, share as appropriate just to help you avoid having to learn it the hard way. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be as big of a mystery, I think, as we think it is. And also, the more I kind of think or just develop and mature spiritually, the more I think all of this is just psychic information, you know? And so, um, there's reasons for that, but anyway, I won't digress right now, but, yeah, good, good, good. I'm so glad to hear you know, you took a class and then you showed up for mentoring and you're doing your angel cards and I don't care if you're not doing your Reiki meditation religiously. None of us do, if we're honest. So, but you are using your tools, you're in it. And this is exactly how you need to be in order to be a Reiki practitioner or just be a spiritual um, healing presence in the world. And you are your own path. And we can absolutely learn from other people and books and whatnot. But ultimately, you're going to be learning through the school of Tristan and the school of Sume and the school of Trisha, right? And so we're all equals here. And there's no avoiding that. We can't learn everything and then go practice. Doesn't work that way. So we got to get over needing to be perfect. And we need to stay playful in order to get over that. And also, you know, check our ego need to be right. Because kids don't do that, right? They're just playing. They don't need to be right. Um, so, anyway, good job. And how about Sumi?
Uh,
Oh, angels. Do you have anything you want to share about Lorna Byrne? Another angel person, Tristan, who's very famous now, who wrote books that you might want to check out. She wrote Angels in My Hair as her first book. She's always been able to see angels.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway, Sume got to see her recently.
I'm sorry, what was that person's name again?
Lorna,
Lorna Byrne, Byrne.
Okay, thank you.
I think she's like based in Ireland.
yeah.
Speaking of hair, yeah, I think that it's super reassuring, you know, that Laura has been super reassuring to me as well, in so many ways. You, Laura, not Lorna. Um, but yeah, I felt like, I never really thought about it much before. And it was really neat to hear, you know, what it was like for her. And I started reading the book. Prob I might have even finished it. Um, yeah, and I thought it was really interesting. Um, I feel like I learned stuff and um I wish I could see them. That's really cool. But I would say that it's already reassuring to know that others can. Um, yeah. So it's just very, very, you know, just eye-opening. Well, not literally, experience for me. So thank you,
Oh, thank you.
Laura.
And I put you on the spot to just go into the brain and come up with stuff, but thank you for playing anyway. And I'm glad it was a good experience. The other thing that strikes me about, when you hear somebody like Lorna talk is how different our realities are and how valid they are, but relative, you know. So she has a perspective into the truth or into reality that's very unique from just about everybody else. But in her experience, it's confirmed and validated, and she can absolutely be a great help to others. But we're not all walking in that same world, or we are, but we don't have the same lens to see it in the same way. And psychic information is like that. So, um, you may pick up your information and about things, and the way that you pick them up may be very different than somebody else. So I like that, and it keeps us safe because then we're not um, declaring a capital T truth. No, it's my truth, and it's on offer. And I tend to always position anything I may add based on what I've seen or heard for somebody as just it's on offer if it's helpful. Because even if it's got some relative truth, if it's not meaningful to the other person, then uh, in from my perspective, what's most important is that they're listening to themselves and that anything that I add empowers them. So it's not I'm not, you know, providing all the answers for people. I'm actually hoping to empower them to find their own answers. And so anyway, you just make me think about it because when you hear her talk about um, as a small child, she was so dyslexic. Now I'm going to talk like her. she she actually was regarded as retarded, and she was taught completely by the angels. So she literally has one foot in a whole other world, and that's just always how she's navigated because she didn't have any other resources. It also makes me think of the telepathy tapes, and
Ah, that's true.
because they also were not able to engage in this reality fully, or in their case, almost not at all. These non-verbal autists, I guess is what they like to be called.
Yeah.
And yet they have this incredible spiritual world. So anyway, that makes me think about, this is so mesmerizing that all of our attention and then all of our belief system is married to it. And in order to cultivate our other senses, do we have to, we have to kind of peel back or peel away from this reality a little bit, especially where our beliefs are so limiting, and then we get experiences that maybe kind of jar us a little bit to kind of maybe shake us out of our very fixed beliefs about things. That certainly has happened to me. So I think Helen made a comment that she used to think of psychic gifts as very special, that only special people had them. And now she is feeling more like, no, it's available to everybody. And absolutely, because that's why I say I think this is a type of psychic information, but we call it reality with a capital R, and it's the only one. But it's a it's a perspective. That's how I see it. And so if I'm limited by, I don't have eyes or something, in the case of the autists, they can't control their bodies and they can't control their bodies, so they can't develop communication verbal. So people treat them differently and they have way different experiences and they're isolated in human form. So they've had to rest in, or not rest, but be more attentive to a different type of perception and a different type of communication just by virtue of this other world being closed down to them for the most part. So that just shows that it's there. We just get wired in to this one like it's the only one. And then there's all these outliers that, you know, besides Lorna Byrne, there's lots and lots of other examples of different outliers who've developed a different relationship to reality. So,
So I thought it was also really interesting there. She took a few questions and she talked about how, well, someone asked, "Can you see angels around me?" And I can't remember if she asked if she asked what they look like. And yeah, so she talked about how it they weren't a gender as we know them. And she described um, this angel as, like light, and um, it's very interesting. And so she said, but I'm not going to be describing everyone's because we'll be here all day. Um, so yeah, I think for that one, she said that that one was really kind of mischievous, um, and uh, that was very interesting. And another person that she that had questions. I don't remember the question as much as his feelings. Like he said that he wasn't not a particularly like known like in the traditional our human egocentric traditional world as super smart or super gifted or anything like that. But he always had this feeling that he was protected, that he was surrounded by angels, and um, and so she confirmed it. Like there are many ways that he had been protected in extraordinary ways, um, and it was also really it was very reassuring that she said there were like so many angels in the room, right? Like, um, so yeah, it was super reassuring. And then she did um, I don't know what to call it, if it's a prayer, a blessing. Yes, that's it. Um, so she just went to, like people were organized such that we'd have a little bit more quiet to receive our blessing. And Some people were there. Well, people were there from like all over. They were like the people that I happened to speak with or was sitting next to. One had traveled from Texas and they were like, they had a flight that they had to catch, you know. Um, the whole trip was to see Lorna. And another, I met another couple and they were like a um, long distance couple. So the woman, I think, must have been in DC, and the man was from the Bay Area. And so they too had to go soon. You know, like everyone had come from all over to see her. I think there were some Canadians.
Wow.
Um,
And this was a
yeah,
pretty small church. I
it
mean,
was. It was, yes.
so the story about that meeting was she was in the Bay Area, but had no intentions of doing any US talks this year. And then the angels told her, you need to do one in Berkeley. Was it Oakland or Berkeley? I forget. Um, and I bought a ticket immediately because I knew they wouldn't last. And then we had the snowstorm of the season in the Sierras, and I have to cross the mountains in order to get over there. And literally, we got 80% of our snowpack in March, like starting on that storm. So it just was not going to work unless I flew, and there was just that wasn't going to be right for me because I had a lot of other stuff going on. So I knew Sumay was over there already. So anyway, she got my ticket, and I was so glad she could go. And do you think you would have been able to get a ticket if you hadn't had one? Because we were going to just, I was going to pick you up and we're going to go talk, sweet talk. Well, you could sweet talk anyone, but that's a superpower of Sume's.
You're sweet. Um, well, I think I kind of feel like they were, they were really, um, the people who were at the door were real, they were checking tickets and they're like, could you like sign in over there? That kind of thing. And I had already signed in because I arrived late. So I was just trying to do everything under the radar. Um, yeah, so, but they were really gracious about it, and it was packed. So I,
Yeah.
I, I
Well,
don't
I'm
know, but
so
I
glad
hear,
you went.
yeah.
And there's a really good Bat Gap interview with her, Tristan, that I'll send you. I'll put it in our chat room or WhatsApp. It's a Buddha at the Gas Pump is the name of the podcast, and he's been doing these podcasts for 20 years now, I think, and there's hundreds of them. And he did one with Lorna a few years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, that's really lovely. And um, I love the takeaway for you is it was very reassuring. And, when I do angel work with people, that's what I hope to be the conduit for, that they feel reassured and also that they feel closer to the angels that are always with them and that they can work with them directly. They don't need to have, I mean, it's always, if it's helpful, great, but to come to somebody like me who does readings, but they have the angels' support and they're already working with them. The angels are working with the people, and that if we just start to deliberately talk to them or ask them questions, they will help. And so I think of that as like 80% of the purpose for having an angel reading with me is that you just get confirmed and reassured that no, you have angels, you know. Um,
And you did the angel reading for me.
oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was super reassuring, and it was spot on. So,
Oh, very good.
yeah.
sometimes in the angel readings are really powerful. And by the way, I'm getting a lot of energy, which is kind of like the way my body tunes into communication or whatever. Um, and I tell people because I can feel something coming, and then I might, if I haven't already said it, I'll say, the thing about angels is they can be very direct. And so you have to be sort of wanting a very direct answer, and it's always going to come with love. And with your highest good in mind, and they will never tell us what to do. And so I think, I don't necessarily want to draw a hard line and say that anybody who says Archangel Michael told you this and that's what you got to do, that they're not really talking to Michael. I'm not sure I could necessarily say that, but I'd be really careful and like use your own heart. And actually, I was thinking about my angel Reiki class, angelic Reiki, which I did take. It's a whole different system, nothing to do with Usui or um, Holy Fire, from a woman in North Carolina. And I remember some of the things she would tell me or tell the class about Archangel Michael and how he really got on her case about something, and so she doesn't allow that anymore, and and this kind of thing. And I was like, I don't, that doesn't sound like Archangel Michael. And you know, I'm not here to correct anybody or evaluate anybody else's psychic information. And I can't teach you how to do either of those, but I can encourage you to follow your intuition. And if you feel that there are red flags of some kind, it doesn't mean to shut the door on that teacher's information or that teacher in general, but just keep bringing your critical mind with you. And then take what serves and, don't take what doesn't serve. And I had to learn that the hard way. And by that I mean when I was much younger, when I was in my 20s, I and actually it probably persisted for a long time. I tended to think that um, somebody else's authority who'd been doing it for a very long time was probably more accurate than my own gut. And so my work was to somehow heal myself so I could see what they were saying. And I don't recommend that. And I don't recommend projecting uh, onto somebody else a lot of authority or a lot of power or a lot of um, I don't know what else. Maybe just those two words are good enough. And that we can be guides to each other. We can be helpful to each other. And some people have an incredible body of knowledge and a ton of experience and are very gifted, and they can be very helpful. But it's always between you and your inner guidance and your inner connection to whatever you call source or spirit or God. And you are your own path. And if you just stay with that, then you can benefit from everybody else, but not get lost and not get mired in dysfunctional dynamics that can come up between people, because people are just people. And I have one of my teachers of A Course in Miracles, Ken Wapnick. He would say that if you look in the mirror and somebody looks back, then you still have your work to do. So that means no matter how advanced people are, they're here and they're still learning their lessons. So, yeah, maybe I have a few slides. I'm debating. I think we'll just keep talking a little bit and we'll get through some of this. I want to have time to do the experience, and I also want to have time to give you breakout today. So, um, let
I
me,
guess I would also like to
oh,
add that you are not just reassuring, you are empowering.
Oh, thank you, Sume.
Yeah,
That's a very high compliment for me. For my what I want to be is empowering. I want, I because of what I have had to heal over, then the good part of that is that e having a kind of egalitarian perspective has been like super important to me, that we're all equals. And so then we can learn and grow with each other. And anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank you.
So I'm going to share. And you know what? I started to think second doubt myself last night, which is probably why I got a little bit less sleep than I wanted. But I'm just gonna kind of free range across these slides. I may or may not stick to them because I realized some of it I'm probably it was coming out of my old lessons, and I want to start. I want to be fresh also. Some of it is valuable though, and I'm not sure you'll figure out which is which for you. So why isn't this clicking? Let's close some things here so I can find some things here. Is this it? Yeah. Okay. So basically, the first thing about any kind of work we do with people, I mean, this is true for all help that we might offer, whether it's medicine. I mean, Sume knows this, right? Sume is a physician. Um, but it's very true with the Reiki work we do and any kind of psychic offerings that we share, is that first we want to do no harm. And now that's easy to say, and then it gets more complex as you find yourself in situations with information and people. So what I kind of want to focus on with everybody is not so much, I think in other classes, and I do have a little bit in this class about how I work with information, and we can do more about developing our gifts. But in tandem with that, and even more important from my perspective, is um, developing spiritual maturity so that, because you can have a lot of gifts and you can misuse them. You can have a perfectly good, it's like having the best government system in the world. Like you could say democracy is a great system, but it depends on the consciousness that is part of that democracy, and in places of power, how that democracy is going to get used. And so my focus is always on developing spiritual maturity so that any gifts that do come in because of the work that you do with Reiki or the other skill building exercises that you practice and the teachers that you learn from, that you're going to be ethical and safe. And from my perspective, also empowering to whoever you're working with. So that's kind of the emphasis of how I talk about this topic. And, self-reflection is the most important thing. And identifying our own values and learning how to identify and release our own ego. That's why I say in classes, let's prioritize our own healing as healers, and let's stay in our own lane. And by that, I mean, let's remember that I'm not the healer. I'm the conduit for the healing. And let me get in the back seat and let me be a good conduit, a good channel. Because how, if we're all equal, from my perspective, we're all perfect. We're all children of God. And we are also veiled by some illusory identity. But there's so many aspects to each of us on our journey to awakening. No human being could ever appreciate those aspects. And so, who am I to say X, Y, or Z should happen, or this person has done, you know, should or shouldn't do these things, or whatever? I could never, ever, for anyone know that. What I what I have to do is be a good conduit and also have my own North Star, my own value system, and also make that transparent for people so that they know going in that this is my perspective and it's only on offer. This is what I can offer because of who I am and how I'm, aligned with the truth in myself. We also have to realize that there are so many other attitudes about healing and sickness and spirit and death and pain and suffering and evil and God, and um, clarify what they mean for us, and then how do we feel when our clients don't align with those ideas, and what happens to us, and are we comfortable, and when might we stop being comfortable, because that's important too. We don't necessarily want to be everything to everyone, because that's kind of an ego thing, right? What I can do is be clear for myself, even if I'm an evolving book, which I am. I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago when I started this practice. Even if I'm evolving, I still want to be standing in the truth as I know it, and then making that on offer, knowing that they're on their own journey, and I want to respect their right to have their own values and come to their own conclusions. The thing about it is, where we are today is that we don't have a lot of the gatekeeping and the safety traditions that we had in the past. So indigenous cultures, for instance, and the healers and shamans that would come out of those traditions, there was a very different process for those healers and shamans. In fact, you couldn't just decide to be one. You were recognized by the tribal elder, or the tribal shaman, as a future shaman. So you were, identified from some external authority and invited into that apprenticeship, basically. And even if you were a student in a tradition, not all information was given to you until you reached a certain level, and maybe you never did. And so you were initiated into higher understandings and gifts only after certain milestones had been achieved. And so that's kind of, when we talk about Reiki and we talk about the symbols, that's a remnant of that type of tradition where we keep them sacred because they're not available to people who haven't been initiated into the attunements, right? But in our culture today, you can take Udemy classes on being a psychic healer for $10, on your computer. You can read a book and you can go to a weekend certification class like mine, right? So I'm not saying that our contemporary system is wrong, but I'm saying that we need to be aware that we don't have all the same safeguards built in. I think there was always, well, I'm not going to go there, but I'm not saying one system is better or worse. Today's contemporary time is the way it is a lot more access. And I think it's a good thing overall. And I have a list, I think, of things. So the benefits are that way more people have access to this higher consciousness and the spiritual gifts. And then that means billions will have the potential to receive their help. So it's just exploded, we can type a few keystrokes on our computer and Google some very high teachers and then sign up for a class and then, begin to have our own experiences. That didn't used to be the case, even 50 years ago or less than that, it wasn't the case. You might have to go to India to meet a guru, to find a guru. If you were a woman on your own, the chances of you finding the right Indian guru were pretty slim. It was a remarkable situation if that happened to you, if you were from, the United States or Europe or something. But another benefit is that I think that all of our consciousness development that we're doing on this explosive scale is changing the collective consciousness in a good way, globally and beyond. And also, our world's problems seem more complex. So we seem to need a lot more higher consciousness right now from all the beings that are here in this time. And the other thing is there's just a ton of people who are being born right out of the gate. They have very strong psychic gifts. And that's part of this explosion, right? So there's not a problem, it's just a different time. But one of the things that we have to learn collectively is discernment and maturity. And so as we are, in our training wheel stage or preteen stage, our awkward preteen stage with all of this, I don't know where we are. We could still be in diapers, but um, just just consider that we're going to have to learn how to be spiritually mature and accountable on our own in different ways. And also, we're going to probably run into lessons around authority, errors that can cause harm, interference from spirits that aren't enlightened, cult-like power over dynamics. All of that is found in the psychic world, right? It's just because we're unhealed still. It's because we're not awake. But, we're bootstrapping. How do we how do we bootstrap our spiritual awakening? Well, I'm going to say, and I didn't have a slide for this because it just came to me, that right now, if I had a theme for what I do and how I see things, it would be spiritual sovereignty. That's how we're going to overcome a lot of the errors, is encouraging, teaching others, empowering others and ourselves to be sovereign unto our own spiritual connection. So our energy, our wisdom, it's like it's all here coming from, it's a vertical relationship. And in Karuna Reiki, which is after the masterclass, there's another masterclass. As right? But no one is ever required to take it. But one of the things I like about it is that there's a particular symbol for this energy of being sovereign. And I use it a lot because I want to help people um, pull back their energy and not be victims to their external world, right? And so, yeah, I just saw your comment. You like that word. I do too.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. And this stuff, because Sume and I are hypnotherapists, and Tristan and Trisha, you guys have your own roles that you play. I think what I'm talking about is really role agnostic ultimately, because whoever we are, we're showing up as that same being, whether we're cooking dinner for a family or we're, practicing hypnosis or Reiki or psychic, a psychic reading. So I'm just going to give you some questions you might want to contemplate if you haven't already. And it's not like we do it once and then we're done. These are things that might keep me up at 2 a.m. because my brain just cycles on these things, like it or not. What is healing? Some of us are so attached to the body and to our clients' bodies, and they're attached to their bodies. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be, but I'm just saying, if we're suffering over it, is it an area where we want to reconsider? And I had some time working in hospice, and there was so much healing that would go on, and none of the bodies that I knew about, some of them lasted way longer than they were supposed to, but everybody died eventually. And guess what? I'm going to die, and so are you. And guess what? Usui received his enlightenment in 1922, which came with the effect of Reiki. And he died 4 years later of a stroke. And then Hayashi had to commit suicide, ritualized suicide. And I'm not saying that to shock anybody. I'm just saying if Reiki were the answer for bodies, and if bodies were the most important thing, would, do those stories go with that idea?
Mm.
Or is there something else? Is there a bigger picture? But see, that gets into, you're going to have to contemplate what that would mean for you. I can only share how I've come up with meaning, and it evolves, and it's mine. It's always on offer, and I'm always open to sharing. But what's more important is that you deep dive and ask yourself. And that might send you on a journey to learn from a lot of other wisdom keepers. Also, what is my reason for being a Reiki practitioner? Or let's just say any kind of healer helper. There's no wrong answer. But I think answers can evolve over time. Like for me, maybe to begin with, I wanted to help my kids. And that was what got me in the door. Or maybe I just wanted to explore my own gifts and see what they were about and how they could be useful. You just want to kind of be clear on where you're coming from, and it can change. And especially as Reiki people, why are you wanting to develop your psychic gifts? I guess for anybody, you could ask that if you want to. The Course in Miracles, I won't read you the quote, but this helped me a lot. I think it can be helpful whether you're a course student or not. It says in the teacher's manual that there's a question: are psychic gifts desirable? And the manual says, any gifts, when they're given surrendered to the Holy Spirit, can be very helpful. And especially very unusual ones, they can be super helpful to people because they can kind of get around our ego blocks. It doesn't say that part, but that's how I interpret it. But they're also potentially a big trap because they can become something that our ego identifies with. And if we're identified as an ego with our psychic gifts, it's like a spiritual ego is just really a miserable thing to have and inflict on people. Trust me. So, you just ask yourself, do I have some ego? And we're not sinful or bad if we have some ego associated with it. We just want to be aware and begin to release that. That's all. We got to be honest, you know. I also, if you've ever been the recipient of healing or somebody else's psychic information, think back about what was helpful about it, what was uncomfortable but helpful, and what was annoying or not helpful or even harmful. That'll help you get clear for yourself what you do want to do more of, what you might be in a situation where it will be helpful, but might not be well received. And, how will you handle that? And, you know, what was it about the harmful or not helpful or annoying situation? These questions were really important to me. That's kind of how I've developed my values.
Are these your very own questions you came up with?
Yes.
They're really good. And also, I imagine they would be really good as an instructor.
Oh, well, here we go. We'll see if I keep hitting a good note with you. It gets kind of wordy. I also keep going. What are your ideas about good versus evil, health versus sickness, ego, death? It's like we kind of have to do an inventory. What do I think about free will versus God's will? Highest good versus power over or victimhood? And then where are my biases and preferences and beliefs around things like the medical profession, the mental health profession, pharmaceuticals, indigenous practices, shamanism, alternative modalities, reincarnation? I was just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall there. There's probably a lot more things, but you know, to know yourself is really important. Where are your own biases, um, preferences, beliefs? Because you're going to be with people that are coming from their own preferences, biases, and beliefs. And if you don't know what yours are, you're going to be triggered. And you're also going to be projecting, and you're going to be maybe inadvertently judging people. So we're not here to be perfect, but we are here to be in an ongoing sort of self-discovery and inventorying process, and cleaning up some of our attitudes as necessary. If I have a really strong anti-medical stance and somebody comes in who's getting cancer treatment, you know, it, well, can I have a super strong anti-medical profession stance and be fair to somebody who's getting cancer treatment, even in just my thoughts? Because what if I'm just, saying if they just would stop the chemotherapy and get some vitamin C, infusions, maybe that's what I'm saying. I don't, and I'm not telling you what to believe or have biases around. I'm just asking you to consider how you can be the most ethical in all the situations that you might find yourself in. There might be clients that you just decide for whatever reason, based on knowing yourself and what you offer that wouldn't be a good fit for you. The other thing is that if you're really clear, then you can be transparent on your website. However you talk about what you do, you can be transparent. Now, I'll just share a little bit about my own perspective. Well, I have some preferences, yes, absolutely. But where I've kind of netted out at this point on just about every form of help there is that there's no one form that's going to be universally helpful to everybody. We're all wired differently. So for me, I'm form agnostic. I have my own preferences and what I might do if it's me. But for somebody else, I want them to do what's right for them without any judgment. Because I consider them all different languages, so to speak. And, like an indigenous healer is going to talk a lot differently about a heart attack than a medical doctor in the West. But one isn't necessarily better as a capital B. It's better for the person it's better for. That's more true. And I can be fluent in the areas that I know about and agnostic about what form is right for people. And then I can be pretty fluid with everything. And then how do I see my role? Like, what is my actual role as a Reiki person or a hypnotherapist or whatever I am, even a physician? You know, and what I mean by that is if I've gone through all these other questions, like God's will versus free will and destiny, and do I believe in reincarnation, and, all of those complicated things, or, spiritual ideas, let's say, then how do I fit in? And you kind of have your own elevator speech in your head about what you offer as a Reiki practitioner or whatever it is, a psychic reader. What feels comfortable for you? So what feels comfortable for me is I help people to come to their own truth. But I also have my own spiritual proclivity, and I share, but it's always just an offer. So if you come to me, I feel pretty, and you've said on your questionnaire that yes, you are open to input from the angels, then I feel pretty liberated to share. There's some caveats, and I'm going to talk about those because I know that you're an equal and that one of the powers that we have as beings is we can help each other remember the truth or remember healing, remember that all is well. And so that's kind of where I start. And as far as the Reiki energy is concerned, that's a way, just like my words, that this high love frequency, this high love consciousness is being extended to someone. And sometimes the words are not as powerful as the energy. And sometimes it's the other way around. And often they're going together anyway. So I'm in my own work, I'm getting a Reiki healing as I'm giving one. I'm working to know myself and let go of my judgments if they come up in a session. And I'm just asking that I be, a good messenger for whatever love wants this person to know in order to empower them, even if they're dying of cancer. How open am I to criticism, failure, or correction? And none of us like criticism and failure. But, am I open to it?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not, what am I doing to avoid it? Maybe I'm not being a practitioner. Maybe that's a reason I just don't seem to get around to it. But how I like to think of it is I'm a work in progress. And I learn through, maybe not, I don't have to have as much outright failure so much as I need a lot of course correction. I can always improve, I can always release and see more clearly. And my style has definitely evolved um, because I've been corrected. So that's what I mean by you are your own path. And we all need correction or we wouldn't be here. Remember, if we look in the mirror and somebody looks back, then we're here to be released of our false ideas. At least that's my attitude.
Mhm.
And also, who's my ideal Reiki client and how comfortable am I saying? We kind of touched on it. How comfortable am I saying no if somebody's not a fit? I had to learn how to do that. And now I'm more clear what I do and what I don't do.
What do you not do?
Well, I mostly it comes up with hypnosis. Hypnosis is so good for so many things, but if you're looking for lifestyle changes, that's not really what I'm doing. I frame my work as spiritual work.
Ah,
And sometimes as we're developing and moving towards peace, we run into these roadblocks, and hypnotherapy can be helpful to identify what exactly it is and how to release it.
mm, thank you.
Yeah. And just the ability to say no in general is really important. And that goes back to being aligned with the truth in you. Because
Yeah.
it's really not saying no, it's saying yes to the truth in you, which might sound like a no to them, right? And if if you're like me, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Yes. That you are. Yes, that I am.
Yeah. So I've had to learn, and the deeper I go into this work, the more and more uncomfortable it gets to not be in alignment with my yes.
Mm,
So I want to give us, whoever I'm with, both freedom. You be in your yes, and I'll be in mine, and I'll bless you on your journey if, we're not fits for each other. Or your request is not one that I can do. So as an example, I'll have a true confession. I had a client that I really have learned to love this person. Just there's a click there, and um, some people become instantly, you feel like you have a rapport. And so, well, I guess this person wasn't exactly like that, but over time it's become like that. And there was an accident that this person had, and it was pretty serious. And I was asked to do a house call. I have a rule about house calls that I don't do. I don't do them. And I said yes. I said I normally will say no to these requests, but in my mind, I care about this person. And I've had some history with them, so I know them pretty well. And it's a very big situation that they've been in, and I want to help. But I can feel it immediately when I say yes, I will. And I don't sleep the entire next night.
Oh.
And I woke up and I knew I have to do the thing that I hate doing more than anything else, which is go back on my word. That just really troubles me. But I knew in this case that I had to because it was the least bad thing to of the two horrible things to say no. So I apologized profusely. I didn't defend myself. I just said I'm terribly sorry, but I just can't do this. I have reasons that just have nothing to do with anyone personally for why I don't do this. And I broke my own rule and I just feel very uncomfortable and I can't. And they were pretty upset, actually. They were pretty upset at me and said something that I thought, ooh, that's a little bit spicy. And, excuse me. I actually just I felt bad that somebody who was in pain, physical pain, now had to go through what they were going through. But I also knew I had to just trust that it's for the best because doing something that felt wrong would be,
You could
um,
have still done Zoom, right?
I offered that and I offered it for free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that's a good question. Yeah, I did absolutely several times because the person requested it several times after I had that conversation.
The home visit, that is.
And I
Oh,
just kept, or, wanting to know about stairs at my house, which this person knew the stairs because they'd been here before. I said, Until you can walk again, you really need to stay home because, it would be a liability for you to try to get to my office." So I just had to be firm. So anyway, I didn't know if I'd ever see this person again. And then a few weeks later, I did. And you know what? We didn't cover any of the past, which I
mm,
was so glad about. And because I think one of the things that we're taught, and I don't necessarily say it's always wrong, but I think it's overrated, is that you have to express your feelings. And you have to clear the air. Not necessarily. You have to do that between you and your God.
mm,
And the other thing was, this person was better than I'd ever seen them. So, how am I to know that something about me doing what I didn't shift them, was part of their classroom they were in?
mhm.
Well, I can't know for sure, but I know they were changed. I can't take credit for it either, and I would never take credit for it. But what I'm saying that for is that I want you to begin to notice that when you take a step for yourself, even if it's uncomfortable and other people are displeased, but you feel that it's heart guided, you're not defensive. You don't have to rationalize everything and defend everything. Sometimes we can't. We just know. We don't know why.
Mm,
That it's for the better of everyone. And we don't always get to see the results, but sometimes we do. And that gives us even more faith the next time. Later, I started to dissect more my rule about no house calls. And so now I think if it came up again, I might not give everybody all the reasons, but maybe one or two. And one of the reasons is that my office is a sacred space. So when you come here, you come into my sacred space. And when I leave my office to your space, I don't know what I'm getting into. And it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just this is where I work. and I can work remotely and I can work without Zoom. We don't have to be on Zoom. So there's a lot of alternatives. And when people are in their own space, there's a lot of distractions and there's a lot of other energies that are involved. I don't have an environment that is mine to, clean up or whatever. So, and the other thing is very practical. There's a lot of time and gas, and I don't feel like, for the normal fee that I charge, a house call is fair. And then when I think about how much would be fair, it seems ridiculously expensive to charge somebody across town in Reno $300 for a session, you know. So there's some practical reasons as well. But mostly it's because I feel it. I feel that this is the right choice for me. So you'll have your own rules for yourself. The other thing is, how might a dysfunctional relationship with a Reiki client look like and how would I handle it? That was sort of a thing that could have become one. The other thing you can have are people that just can't pay, and there's no reason that you have to reject them. You just have to know what your values are and and how you're making your decisions. Or like if they become super dependent on you or they never change. And I have had people once in a while, after maybe seeing me for a few months and feeling like we're not making any shifts, that in a kind way, I might uh, suggest that they've been given some ideas that I have to offer, but they don't seem to be relevant for them at this time, and that is absolutely okay. But that's pretty much what I have to offer here. And so, we might not be the right fit. And oh, by the way, that doesn't mean I don't want to be friends with you. And I tell people that because after you've worked with them a long time, you might feel like you have a friendship and that's legitimate. But that's different, a friendship versus being a client. And sometimes you have to figure out where that line is for yourself. But if I feel like we're having the same conversation with absolutely no change every single time, you know, I can't want them to shift more than they want to shift and do the work to shift. And that's something I've had to learn. Like
Yeah.
all my persuasive skills might just be feeding their resistance, you know, because it really isn't me who has any of the power at all. I just can put things on offer. And sometimes ending the offering when they're not being receptive is the best way to help them. So, but you could think about for yourself, there's probably other examples. And how important is money to my practice? And how dependent am I on making money from my Reiki work? And I don't mean that to suggest you can't make money on Reiki and you can't have it as your primary income. What I'm asking us all to do is, what am I doing or saying just because of money? And, you know, okay, I'm going to share, there's a really prominent psychic out there. And when I was listening to stuff last night, thinking about this morning, I I thought I want to check out this video where he says, he's got this new program, but he's going to give you a little nugget, in this video for free about how to connect with our spiritual guides and our resources, angels and whatnot. And he does, he's been on Oprah, he's really popular. And for the most part, his offering was really good, but he was because I'm a hypnotherapist and Sume is as well, I know what hypnosis is, whether you say you're hypnotizing me or not. You're talking in such a way and using words in such a way that I'm going to, if I'm following you, I'm going to slow my brain waves down and I'm going to become more suggestible. So at the end of his session, first of all, at the beginning of his session, he says, "You can trust me 100%." And then at the end of his session, he said, "And if you love if you loved what you just did with me, and I know you did, I know you love this." And then he went on to sell his, before he ever brought anybody fully back, went on to sell this package.
Oh,
And he was going on and on about how you can have, it was like you could have the archangels at your fingertips solving every problem that ever comes up for you. You know, that was the feeling, the takeaway. And I know he thinks he's being perfectly ethical. And I know he believes in what he's doing. And a lot of people really like him a lot. And I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying those were red flags for me. And, you know, he's a sales guy. There's nothing wrong with selling your work, but I think, you know, how do you stay
I
ethical
would,
with that?
yeah, I would have red flags too with that.
And it'd be really easy to not have a red flag if you weren't wired to find them, right? Because you so want to have help. You know, probably most people who watch his stuff are just so desperate for help. That's the thing, is we're working with vulnerable people a lot of times
mhm.
who are very sick or very in need, emotionally upset, you know, going through very traumatic personal relationship situations, etc. So we want to honor their vulnerable status, know that they are very powerful, that they're just temporarily going through a classroom, and empower them in that. And you have to really be careful about your needs, you know. When are you people pleasing? And then when are you manipulating for your own benefit? And then, you know, just do you have any rules for yourself like I do? And if you don't, do you need a few? So I've talked a lot. I could probably save this part for next time. Um,
These are great, Laura. They're so thoughtful. I can see how, you know, I have always thought you were very, like, very thoughtful in how you select your words, how you present things. And I know you spend a lot of time thinking about, you know, the deeper philosophical things. Um, I think partly it runs in your blood. Um, and it's very evident here. And um, I, 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 I feel like they're so valuable. So thank you.
oh, thank you, Sumi.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just share a couple stories. You know, Helen Schuckman, who was the scribe or the channel for A Course in Miracles, you know, she was an example of an incredible psychic, right? Literally, if you've never looked at it, you might just look at it for the language. It's iambic pentameter, like Shakespearean verse.
Really? Wow.
And it's symphonic. You know, themes are presented and then they go away, and other themes are brought up and then they're repeated and developed and repeated, and developed. And she literally was just taking dictation. She was in the middle of a very complex job at a very prominent New York hospital. She was a psychotherapist, and she could be, you know, taking dictation from the voice, as she called it, interrupted by a phone call in mid-sentence, and then go right back to the sentence when the phone call was over. So we're talking a very unique gift, right? She
Wow.
also called this voice Jesus, although she refused to use his name very much. That he, she just, but people knew she meant Jesus. But anyway, she had a part of her relationship with him at the beginning where she was testing him, and she would say, well, if you're so know everything, I want a pair of green Ferragamos in my size on discount. And they would go shopping, and Jesus would say, go over here, not over there where you'd think they'd be. They're over here behind this thing, right? It was a game. It was all in her, her world, her lens of some inner awakeness. And that was how she was relating to it. The thing about Helen was, even with all these kind of miraculous shopping stories and all that, getting a cab and by standing in the right corner at the right time in New York City, she was very often completely wrong when it came to specifics. So she predicted when Bill was going to die, and she predicted a lot of different things, and she would see certain things, and there would sometimes be truth to them, but in a very different way than she interpreted that information. So just know that about psychic information, you know, how you're pick, it doesn't mean your psychic information is invalid. But if you feel like it's really, really specifically saying, you're going to meet a tall, dark, and handsome person on Wednesday in May, and you're going to get married and have 2.5 kids, and, be suspicious of that if you're receiving that or hearing that. Um, I'll tell you another story. And this is a painful story because this happened to me. But I was part of a group that in my 20s, and it was about psychic development, and we did all kinds of practices, and we learned, psychic healings, past life healings. We did remote viewing. We did a lot of stuff. It was considered sort of shamanism and all these other things rolled up into this particular teacher's style. So everybody there was also pretty much professional. She had been a psychotherapist, and she tended to attract people who were very intellectual and highly trained. And so, anyway, when my son was born, so anyway, there were a lot of, I was very young. I was in my 20s when I met this group and became part of it. And I was with them for a total of 3 years. And um, during that period, I got married and I had my firstborn. And when he was 3 months, we discovered he had no immune system. And one day I was called by the head teacher, who was very charismatic, by the way. And they were going to do a healing for me and my son Ray. And I felt very honored. I was like, wow, it felt like the queen was, inviting you to tea or something to have that happen. Because this was a pretty big group, and there were communities in Canada and the United States that were all affiliated with this teacher. So anyway, I get there, and it is not what I thought. It turns out it's more like an intervention, a surprise.
Oh no.
All of so Faye is there. I won't give you her last name. She's still out there. And all of her upper level students, who've been through, because she had, her trainings never ended. And so I think they're on like in the 30s at this point, but there were only 7 when I was doing this. So these were upper level 7 students or whatever they were. And they all appeared to be reading my energy and my son's energy, and they all came up with the same conclusion that we had been that I had been sexually molested when I was a kid and was in dissociation from that memory. And that Ray was being actively molested at 3 months old by his father, my husband, and that that's what was causing his disease. That had nothing to do with his genetic disposition or anything like that. And that until I came to terms with this truth, my son could suffer and die, possibly. So that's what they told me. So here I walked into what I thought was going to be healing, and they needed to tell me their psychic information. And not only was it Faye, who, has all this street cred in my mind because I've, you know, just bought a lot of her stuff. And I've also ignored a lot of my red flags, by the way. So that's the other part of the story. Um, but it's everyone, all of these people are seeing the same thing, they say. And I don't doubt that they thought they did. And I don't even know if what they saw was completely wrong. It was certainly wrong in the way they were interpreting it. Completely wrong. And so in that moment, I all the eggs were in one basket. All my friends, all my support, all my spiritual connection, everything else, all my authority was in this Fae community basket. And now I have a son and a husband who aren't, what do I do? And then I have potentially my history. How do I reconcile all of this? So I was kind of in this very fragile place. And that's an understatement. I felt like actually I could have probably had a mental health breakdown, but I didn't because I had a small baby to take care of. And so that was my first dramatic example of abuse. And I just want to share it, put it on record here for anybody who watches the video. They thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were seeing what they were seeing, and they were coming from their spiritual perspectives as light warriors. And I would be very careful identifying as any kind of a warrior because then you're always at war. And some people can use that term and they feel comfortable with it. I do not. um, who are you against if you're the warrior? What are you a champion of and over? And so I just would say be very careful how you walk your path in this area because we're going to run into religious trauma and past life stuff and all this good and evil potentially. How are you going to hold that? Now for them it was so real, everything went into that, got processed through that belief system, and the results would usually come out that there is, someone abusing their power over you. And so you had to be always on guard. You had to have a million defenses and shields and all this stuff. And if you believe it, you will live it. And that's what I watched. People actually became really paranoid in that group. So be very careful what you believe because you will live it out. You know, that's how powerful our minds are, I think. So, anyway, the other thing I could say on that subject of um, the chapter of Ray is that before he was born, when I first had an inkling that I was pregnant, I became paranoid. I had this belief, I had this feeling, this knowing out of nowhere that I was going to have a son with AIDS. But that didn't make any sense because I didn't have a lifestyle that would leave me open or vulnerable to AIDS. And I'm sharing that because what happened was he was born with no immune system, and he ended up manifesting all the same conditions that a full-blown AIDS patient would. And that was one of the first things the doctors wondered if he had. So take that into consideration when you feel you're getting some psychic information about a particular specific, right? In my case, I thought he had AIDS. I thought I was going to have a baby for no reason with AIDS. And it turned out he didn't have AIDS. He had an immune condition that was from a genetic disorder. So that was just another example of a specific that was actually wrong, but there was some truth in it. So how are you going to walk that line? That's where you kind of figure out how you're going to hold that information for yourself and how you're going to share it if you decide to. um, and I'll just close the Faye story with saying the way that I got out of that um, was I that was the moment I turned inward. And that took me on a whole new trajectory, by the way. And there's a whole other chapter to my life around that. But the first thing that I had to do was disentangle from this community spiritually, because as I said, all of my eggs were in that basket. All of my energy was in that basket. So when I went into my inner teacher and I asked, what do I do? They had these monthly meetings, and the teacher, very surprisingly, but from a gentle authority that was very direct, that I felt was accurate and that I could trust, said, you must keep going to those meetings, but go with new eyes. And so what happened was I did. And new eyes meant I was an observer now. I was the witness. And so I was shown all the things that I was ignoring before when I had given them all my authority. You know, the red flags were very apparent to me at that point. So that was how I began to get divested of that. Because had I not done that, I would have carried them with me and I would never have been able to heal and become clear and neutral about it. And it would have lost some of its value as a classroom. So I always feel like there aren't really any victims. And ultimately, it was a very uncomfortable thing. But in the most accurate way to look at it, I wasn't a victim. I was in a very potent classroom because I needed, well, you know, God doesn't put us in classrooms. That's not my perspective anyway. I think that we have created the mess and then we go back over the mess with a new consciousness. So when we decide to awaken, we have to retrace our steps, our missteps. And so that was my retracing of my missteps. Okay, so let's take a quick break and then uh, let's do our Reiki experience, and then we probably will have time for a quick healing session. How's that? Let's come
Thank you
back in
for
5 minutes.
sharing.
What was that?
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's come back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Oh, any comments or questions before we move on?
A thought that kind of popped into my mind as you were telling your stories, with receiving the psychic information and how we interpret it. It kind of sounds like um, the information may be, sent in a certain way, but interpreted with the filter of our conditioning or ego as well.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I guess that's where like the misunderstanding can take place, or it gets very specific. And I think that specificity can come from like our conditioning as well.
Yes. Yes. And also kind of maybe some subconscious wants or,
Mm,
you know, things, and they're subconscious, so we're not necessarily aware of them, you know. If they're subconscious, we don't know what we don't know. So we can't really assume that we're always a clear um, messenger. I would prefer to not even try to, well, not try. I mean, I'm going to try to be accurate, but I really, for myself, it feels safer to stay out of specifics. And my work with higher wisdom is they have not given specifics, you know. And so the idea is if they are higher, they're trying to help us be like them, not by making our decisions for us, but by giving us perspective that will help us mature spiritually and make good decisions.
right. And I think that's also kind of, I don't want to use the word a problem, but I guess one of the caveats with like these channelings as well, like, are they speaking to us in English? And we're translating it like that? Or are these my words that I'm using to interpret the message, right?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. You know, so many people channel Jesus, but he was an ancient Hebrew, right? He
Yeah.
didn't speak English. So, um, I have a whole metaphysical perspective on what are we really tuning into. What I would say, and I don't want to take up too much time from what we're going to do, but how I hold it is that all of the high guidance is coming from an awake part of my mind. which is also your mind. We're cut of the same cloth. And it's reaching me in a dream. And just like if there's a telephone that goes off in the room while you're asleep having a dream, and your mind might turn the telephone that's actually ringing into a telephone that's ringing in your dream, or a bell or something, it'll re it'll imagine an excuse for that, you know, it'll build it into the dream. It's a lot like that. So it's an abstract love awakeness that's communicating to me in my dream through symbols that I can relate to. And so sometimes it reaches me through the presence that I feel, maybe through the Reiki. Sometimes it reaches me through words on paper, but it's still a dream, but it's a way I can relate to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I see all of that's why I said at the very beginning, I see all of this could be considered sort of like psychic information. It's part of a mind that is having an experience based on content in the mind. But when my content in my mind changes, this reality seems to change. And that's why the masters talk about, I don't live in that world. The one that you're describing isn't the one I'm living in. And and then it explains for me anyway, this is just my attempt at, in a very succinct way, describing something, but it explains for me why a lot of miracle and kind of phenomenon stuff can happen. Because we're having these shifts in our mind, and then our dream is changing. Because when you had a dream last night, you know, and someone seemed to be doing something to you, maybe it was good or maybe it was bad. When you wake up, you realize even though it felt so much like you were, so happy or you were so threatened, it was all you doing it because you were the only one dreaming your mind. You were all of it. You were those characters and the one that you identified with and the trees and everything else. So that's how I see this reality. And so as we start to heal and spiritually heal, we call it, our reality shifts. But as part of that, I call it like the divine intervention is when I begin to open to that awakeness in my mind. And that awakeness can pour through into my dream experience because I'm now open to it. And so that's what begins the shift because otherwise this dream just self-perpetuates, is how I see it. It's a status quo machine. So that's why it goes around and around and around. And that's Maya, right? Getting off the wheel of Maya is finally stopping the agreement and then, you know, beginning to retrace our mistaken steps so that we can awake all the way.
Is this A Course in Miracles?
It is, but it's non-duality, really.
Okay.
Yeah, and Course in Miracles is non-duality. So and that's my tricky thing when I talk about anything. Like, I think there's a Buddhist saying something like if you ask a Buddhist how God makes an apple pie, or how to make an apple pie, first they tell you how God had to make the universe, and then they have to step you all the way through. I feel like when I ask myself a question or how will I explain this, that's what happens to me. I have to go all the way back to the metaphysical roots of everything. And it's kind of hard for listeners, I'm sure. But
Because I came in partway.
that's what keeps me uh, more stable.
Moored.
Yeah. So it's not for everyone. Uh, it's just on the topic of healing and psychic stuff, you need to find your structure, how you feel about things. And then yeah, anyway.
Love
So
it.
well, is Trisha here? She probably is. We'll just go anyway. Oh, there she is. So this holy love experience, the script is the same as we've done in the past, but this particular one is, William Rand just numbered them. So this is the fourth holy love experience. And the intention behind this one is that the holy fire energy will evaluate each of us and see where we are in terms of our spiritual development or our development as a healer or both, and give us whatever is most helpful for us to take our next step. So I thought that would be a good adjunct to what we're talking about today, because we're talking about our priority being to always be spiritually growing and maturing. So now we're going to take this intention to Reiki or Reiki's assistance.
I totally have my academic lens still. It's like, what? We're having an exam?
No,
I haven't studied.
no, 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 no. This is all going to be you just letting the light guide you, just as usual. And Reiki's going to be ministering to each of us what we can receive today that will help uplift us into our next step of growth.
Ah, just as it usually does.
Yes, it's the same as usual. So get comfortable. I'm going to find some chimey music here. And my hope is you can hear me talk and you can also hear the music. And if you can't, somebody can know. Otherwise,
I hear you. I hear the music.
okay. The only love for experience.
Although you're cutting out a little bit. So I can't hear you now.
I haven't said anything. Can you hear me now?
The music is kind of loud, so I hear the music more than you.
Okay, how's this? I'm going to keep
Still,
the music very low and then I will turn it up when I'm done.
okay, that's better. Yeah, that would be better.
Okay, great. Thank you. So imagine that it's a beautiful sunny day. When you breathe in, fill yourself up from head to toe with life force energy and let it recharge all of your cells. And be in a beautiful forest walking down a path. And as you take steps, feel the earth sending you grounding energy up through the bottoms of your feet. Just let the life force energies and the grounding energies recharge you, ground you, anchor you. Go ahead and exhale any thoughts or any tension anywhere. Just gently walk and appreciate the beauty around you, all the growing living things. Let yourself begin to feel a sense of peace come over you and just merge with that peace. And as you continue to walk along, you see that up ahead it's getting lighter. And that means you'll be coming to the end of the forest. As you leave the forest, before you is a beautiful river. This is the river of life. And it comes from the very high mountaintops. This water, it's very clear, pure, alive. There are beautiful flowers that grow along the riverbank, and you decide to take a walk alongside the river. And eventually you come to a place where there's a bend in the river. It does a gentle turn. And you pause here. There's a light breeze blowing, and it makes ripples on the surface of the water. As you watch the ripples, you notice that the sun shines on the rippled surface, and that creates this magnificent, glittering, shimmering light. And you just gaze at this light and feel a sense of extraordinary aliveness of this light. It's not ordinary light. It's spiritual light, and it's coming from the highest heavens. Light is all around you now. Shimmering, glittering, aliveness. And you allow the light to enter your soul. And now you can allow the light to guide you. with your experience as long as you like. When you're ready, bring your awareness to your eyes and slowly open your eyes. Welcome back, everybody. That was very satisfying for me. I felt some very loving, very, very gentle, powerful energy. I want to hear if anyone else has anything to share, but one thing I want to do is leave the subject for now on the note of love. And one of the most beautiful things, safe things, is that we are in the hands of Reiki. Our clients are in the hands of Reiki. And we really don't need to put all that much importance on the psychic stuff. And lean in first to your Reiki and trust Reiki. And then let yourself slowly develop in these other areas. It will happen anyway. And the more we can lean into the love of Reiki and the power of Reiki and let go of the need to know or understand or control or anything like that, the more we become those hollow bones and safe spaces. And that gives us a very safe foundation for the rest of the gifts that are natural to us to open up and to be used from an ethical place. And so this system is why I chose it, is that I was coming out of that other experience into Reiki because I felt like I could trust this Reiki love. That I wasn't going to be in charge, and if I was just focused on my own healing and allowing Reiki to do the healing for anyone else, then I was a safe place and I wouldn't be in danger of causing any harm. So that's how I started my relationship with Reiki, and that's what I want us all to remember. Even as we develop into our gifts, we can always have that as our foundation. So then we're very safe. So this is not about scaring anybody away from their gifts, but to anchoring in this higher power that's really the one that does the healing through us. That, and I had a couple of books to recommend. And I'm going to bring up my Kindle here.
Maybe your guitar and singing is also like allowing Reiki through you.
Yeah. Yeah. For anyone, if you have any other gifts, music or cooking or childcare or gardening or whatever it is, Reiki is going to use all of it as a carrier wave. So it's a delivery mechanism for that love and heat.
Yep.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at my library here, and okay, one is The Ethical Psychic. Let's see if I can share a link in the chat room here. And the author of this is on the Reiki Lifestyle podcast. She was interviewed by Colleen and her daughter, Robin, when the book first came out. And, you know, you don't have to agree with everything. I think she does a lovely job, though, of highlighting really important areas. So I would recommend that. But everything I read, and recommend, read with discernment, your own discernment. Um, Everything we do here should be caveated that way. And then where is it? Ethics.
Laura, you
Yeah.
mentioned a podcast earlier this morning with um
Memory tape
Lord
or something?
no, with Lorna. I
Oh,
Buddhist
forgot
at
her
the
last name.
Pump. Buddhist at the Pump with Lorna.
Oh, yeah.
Buddhist at the moment.
I'm gonna find it because it's easy here.
Oh, I
Okay.
totally misheard it earlier.
Thank
I
you.
thought you said Buddha ass pump.
Oh, no,
That's
Buddha at the gas pump.
Sume, that's what I heard, and I was like, I know I heard that wrong.
Oh, that's
You
funny.
guys were giggling. I thought it was just a funny name. The real one was funny, but that's even funnier.
I thought it was like supposed to be maybe completely irreverent or something like that. Okay, thank you for the correction.
I
See,
have
we need them.
a teacher who has uh, Paul Heaterman. He has a very irreverent podcast. I can't remember it off the top of my head. So there's the link for the podcast on Lorna Byrne with the Bat Gap people. And then ethics of caring. Let's see. Here it is.
Is it at all a reference to that song? Um, I said, yep, what a concept. I could use a little change myself, and we can all use a little change. You know that one?
I don't.
'Cause he was at the gas pump, and then someone came and asked him for money, and he's like, yep, we could all use some change.
Oh, okay. No, this guy is from Iowa who started this. And in this little town in Iowa, there are a lot of very advanced awake people. And so it's like, his idea was, we have all these famous teachers, but what about the ones you meet at the gas pump, And
Ah,
so anyway, and it's because there was a group of people that followed, I forget his name, the TM teacher from way back in the 60s, trans, you know, uh,
yeah.
anyway,
I
I forget his name, but anyway, so so as I think about it, I forget what this book. I know I liked it, and I can't remember it very well, and I haven't looked at it in a while. But I'm going to take another look at it. So the Ethics of Caring book, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the other one, I have recently looked over again, and I also listened to her interview again. So check them both out, and definitely pursue learning more about your psychic intuition. I know Becky wanted some ideas about who to go to, and I can share them in our community area. But the ones that came to my mind that I haven't done their training, but if I were going to do training, and maybe I will someday, Nancy Rebecca, she's a trained registered nurse for many, many years, and she um, became a medical intuitive, and she talks about a lot of energetic stuff going on in our time right now. And I think I forget what her program is, but she has a free class you could try out. I'm looking up her website here. Like, I think Discovering Your Intuitive Style is the name of her free one, I think. Um, So intuitivemind.org, I'll post it here, is Nancy Rebecca's site. I know her primarily from her videos. And, I can't say I've taken her classes and are telling you for sure. I think it's really valuable, but I'm saying from what I've seen of her, I would try her. Um, And the other one, what was the other one? Oh, Tina, what is her name? Zion, I think. Zion, yes. And Tina Zion does Reiki. She's also a medical intuitive. But everything I've heard her talk about, I really like. And she's kind of she does mediumship work as well. A medium would be somebody who gets messages from spirits. She's also a medical intuitive and she teaches it. So, and then I might have other ideas that come to mind. I do think there's so much out there if you search, and so much of it seems kind of, not my cup of tea. So definitely use your gut. And even if you like somebody, doesn't mean you have to completely, follow everything that they teach. You can discern for yourself. Ask Reiki to help you. That's going to be my answer for everything. Just ask Reiki. And I used up all of our time today, well, and the Reiki experience, and I hope that was okay. Next time, I think we'll start with breakout sessions. And but thank you so much
Totally
for
okay.
listening. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments or
I'm always learning something from you, Laura, so it's all good.
oh good. Well, we're learning together. I realize how hard it is for me to be concise and articulate on these topics, so I must need more practice. So you're the guinea pigs. And
I think it works out exactly how it's supposed to, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
I thought, well, maybe at the end, if we do a short number of talks, I'll kind of write some things down that I say, because I'm better, I think, if I speak it first. I'm also better when I'm answering questions sometimes than when I'm just trying to make an apple pie recipe, because then I get lost in the cosmos building first.
Well, if anybody wants to practice Reiki, I'm available. So just reach out. So even if we don't get the practice here, I am available.
Also,
So
if people wanted to stay right now, I'd be happy to have the room stay.
I would be up for that.
I have to go. So
Oh, you
Okay. That's fine too.
I know I offer it and then I'm like, oh, but I have to go.
Oh no, it's fine.
But
We could
yeah,
do another time
yeah,
you know,
any other time,
yeah.
usually.
It's nice for the reminder that we can contact each other and
Yeah, we could set up any
set it
time.
up. Yeah,
Yeah. So
don't forget about that.
kind of had, yeah.
Hmm.
So yes, just reach out.
Okay.
So absolutely.
well,
I
wonderful.
love doing it. So, I know right now I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it.
Oh, that's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's Saturday. You've got
Yeah.
people to see or animals
Yeah,
to see and things to
yes,
do.
I do have things to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Totally fine.
Well, thank you, you guys. We'll do our quick little thank you prayer. And I really appreciate you. You helped me learn. And that means a lot to me. So thank you for showing up today and bringing your sincerity and your questions and your thoughts. And um, thank you, Reiki. And thank you, loving guides and teachers and angels. We are so appreciative. And you guys are just really a joy to share these ideas and tease out things with. I want you to know that. And I wouldn't want to be doing anything else other than this kind of thing with you guys. So thank you. And we will see each other in a couple weeks. Other than that, we'll see each other online on this WhatsApp. And I will be posting this recording um, on our community hub. And Tristan, I sent you an invite in your email. So Thank you, everyone. Have a really great rest of your day and the rest of the weekend, and I will see you when I see you.
I love you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.